Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I would like to express deep appreciation of the Chamber to the Ministers of Government, the Honorable Mr. Victor F. Banks, the Honorable Ms. Cora Hodge Richardson, the Honorable Ms. Everly Bradley, for taking time out of their busy schedule to come and meet with the membership of the Chamber. We consider this a very important meeting, and I must thank the membership for their response. We have never ever had a meeting that has had this kind of response in all the years that I've been with the Chamber. So I thank you for being here. Because primarily, as you may know, the Chamber is an advocacy organization. It is here to advocate on behalf of the interests of its members, and those interests are economic. And at this time in our country, the economic interests are at the forefront. And we thought, the Board of Directors thought, that it's probably more effective and probably better if the leaders of government can hear directly from our members today in terms of the problems that they're experiencing in their day-to-day operations. You know, businesses have to worry about paying employees every Friday or at the end of the month, meeting their other commitments, and these are the people and these are the organizations that in turn will make the wheels of the economy turn and thereby get us out of our long doldrums that we've been in. I know that the government has been dealing with a lot of major issues, but I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of mundane, everyday issues that affect our membership. Things that, in most cases, do not require a lot of money or a lot of effort. They just need to be done. And I'll just strike off a few things that come to mind, things that have come to the Chamber. People would like to pay bills over lunchtime. No big deal, you know. My wife is continually annoying me about this home shopping situation that we have. I don't shop, and the Chamber staff tells me this is still one of the #1 concerns, the inconvenience to our membership in dealing with a home shopping center at the post office. Customs. You know, the Chief Minister in one of his early addresses says that he's depending on customs to generate the kind of revenue that will address the programs and policies that he has in mind to move Anguilla forward. Well, our membership complain about the customs all the time. Customs this, customs that, customs the other. And they're trying to resolve these issues. You know, I'm told, yeah, we want to get the revenue going, but we don't have the resources. We have IT issues. We have vehicle issues. We have you know, we can't get answers in time to a lot of the issues that concern us. So these are some of the things we hope that the ministers can address for us today. I want to stress this though, that we're all here because we love Anguilla, we want to see Anguilla move, and I want to beg everyone here today is that you can be forceful with your questions, but be respectful. The ministers of government have been elected by the people of Anguilla, and we owe them that level of respect. They're our eyes, ears, faces, and everything. So as business people, as responsible people, I ask you to be respectful. Ask whatever question you're entitled to do that. But just give them the respect that they do, because they are our faces. We thought that we would start today's meeting with a survey that was taken of our membership recently. And I'd like to publicly thank Mrs. Melinda Goddard for her time and her effort, as she volunteers to do these things on behalf of the Chamber every couple of years. So without much ado, so that we can have enough time for the question and answer period, I would like to call on Mrs. Melinda Goddard to share with her her findings and the survey among Chamber members, not the population at large, just our membership, because this will set the stage for a lot of the discussions that we'll have. Again, I thank you for coming out. I thank you for your interest. And let's have a productive meeting today. Thank you.
Good morning everyone indeed. Thank you Mr. Lake for welcoming me and certainly everyone here. If I may very respectfully adopt the established protocol, it is again a pleasure to bid everyone a good day. As you may follow along, you have a copy of the slides, but today it's certainly a pleasure and a privilege for me to present to you some of the key findings from the 2015 Anguilla Chamber of Commerce and Industry Business Survey. Before I go into some of the specifics, I would also like to express very sincere thanks to more than 100 of our members here at the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure many of you are in the room today, for your time and your candor to, in fact, represent the views, concerns, and some of the critical issues you wanted us to be discussing today when you participated in the survey. So a very special thanks to those of you who participated. Excuse me. By way of a little bit of background and giving you a context, many of you may have also participated in past years, but just to refresh your memories, this is indeed an initiative going back to 2004. The business survey was conducted in 04, 5, 6, and 7, 13, and again this year in 15. And for those who might have been wondering about it, we really wanted to focus more on providing input for today's meeting, and we moved away a little bit this year from ranking best businesses. I know it was a lot of fun in the past, maybe we'll go back to that in the future. Indeed, the objectives were to identify key issues, again, for input for today, and hopefully discussions going forward, as well as on additional questions, provide strategic direction to clarify, make certain that the Chamber is supporting the initiatives and events and so forth that the membership really find valuable. So there was some very much appreciated feedback on those aspects as well. Again, if you're curious as to the specific methodology, we began the survey on July 14th. It was hosted online, and with thanks to Lily and later on some of the messages I sent, 23 of you participated electronically, and with very special thanks to Karen Pina, she reached out to 83 of you and provided the opportunity for a personal interview, saving you the time to actually input the data and so forth. So in all, 106 members of our business community are represented in the data that I'll be sharing with you today. And as I mentioned, we're focusing on that first question. Again, just to give you that specific context, it read, "The Chamber of Commerce remains committed to representing the needs and critical issues of the business community to the Government of Anguilla. What would be the top priority or key topics that you think should be addressed with the Government of Anguilla at this time?" And to continue on, just in rank order, you see a bit of a word cloud there, which are getting very popular. Computers can generate these but they're a little bit of nonsense because they don't know the nuance of the words, but just give you a feel for the kinds of things people were talking about. In reading through the comments, I was able to cluster them into the major themes that you see on the slides that you have in front of you. In all 55 of the participants in the survey, the most common area related to aspects of taxation, many people feeling they were having difficulty paying customs duties or that they needed to be relieved from them in various ways. A lot of merchants commenting on the need to compete with St. Martin, to have some specific suggestions like make them lower on food, maybe higher on things like cigarettes and alcohol. Others suggesting that they're lower on things that are needed for our health and medicine, perhaps freight to again be more competitive in our retail businesses, brochures making it easier to market them, and then 8 people specifically focused on aspects of general taxation and the interim stabilization levy in particular. In rank order, 31 people commented on aspects of tourism. In supporting the economy, we are all reminded that we can't delegate this to other institutions. Indeed, the Chamber represents many members of the hospitality industry. We had comments like there's a need to address access issues, specific comments around the early and late ferry, ways to increase air arrivals. Others just saying we need to support tourism in general as a chamber, to do it year-round, to make the visa process easier, etc. Another cluster focused around the access itself, enhancing the ports, providing more staff training, upgrades to the facilities, and making sure there's consistent and proper maintenance, and also even addressing a couple comments back on making sure the island is clean. Continuing on, about 20% or 19 of the comments related to continued hopes for greater support for local and small business. Please, comments like, please provide more support to foster new and small local business. Again, make it easier to compete with duty-free St. Martin, easier to set our businesses up, to get work permits when we need them, electronic payments, and some fairness issues came up. Specifics like, please stop making event businesses pay both event and business licenses, or work permits, someone feeling that only certain sectors are getting them. Allow car rental businesses to pick up customers at ports, making it easier for them to do their business and provide better service. Reduce big hotel concessions that force small businesses or the rest of the community to carry a larger tax burden. Next, 11 comments related to just suggestions beyond tourism. General ones like please support the overall economy, make sure we're seizing manufacturing and agriculture opportunities, and others around general business support like training for employees and so forth. Far fewer, but in rank order again, 6 other comments related to perhaps suggesting aspects of regulation, maybe limiting licenses or having different criteria for them, making sure street vendors are properly regulated, and a couple of people saying that they feel there's an unfair advantage during the summer with things like the 5-star versus 3-star properties and the room rates during those periods. 5 others commented on aspects of energy being a challenge to the business, needing to reduce energy or fuel costs and or surcharges. And 5 others mentioned specific aspects of banking, the situation overall, the need to foster capital formation, and 1 other mentioning their desire to ensure that we can do international banking. Other topics were 3 or less. In all, 132 themes or specific suggestions and comments came out from the 106 people. Obviously, if you do the math, some people had more than 1 comment, and I was making sure that we represented them in the different categories. So just to summarize the key findings overall, relief from taxation and the challenges to the economy that many are still feeling remain the #1 critical issue for the Anguilla business community in 2015. Greater and continued support for the tourism sector was the #2 most frequently mentioned issue. Elements of access, the arrivals process, a lot of very positive feedback with regard to the welcome desk, but still an important and visible element from the Chamber's perspective. Indeed, that Chamber engagement in this critical economic driver is still needed very much to remain a relevant Chamber. Greater support for Anguilla businesses was the 3rd most frequently mentioned issue. Again, the ability, wherever possible, for relief from taxation or fees when people are maybe struggling to get going, and to consider some of the barriers to competing with St. Martin and some of the bureaucratic aspects to making doing business a little easier. And finally, just to highlight some of the other areas of the survey, just to close, I think everyone in this room, and certainly the board and the staff of the Chamber, should be very proud to see that the Chamber appears to be more vibrant than ever, in addition to your gracing us with your presence here today. There was in all a 25 percentage point increase in the number of people who said definitely yes, they would renew their membership of the Chamber and that they would be willing to recommend doing so to a colleague. That is 93% of the people surveyed said definitely yes to that question, not just maybe, going up from 2013. And indeed, why? Many people cited wonderful compliments around staff support, the ongoing information being provided to the members, as well as particular appreciation for the events, and as I mentioned, particular interest in seeing the Welcome Desk continue and achieve some of its earliest objectives as well. And so with that, I invite you to continue the meeting, and thank you for your attention, and again, to everyone for your participation in the survey this year.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallard, and I want to thank all the members who participated in this survey, and we welcome your continued enthusiasm and support so that the Chamber can truly become the voice, the effective voice of its membership. At this time, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the ministers and ask them to take the seat at the head table. First of all, I'd like to invite the Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Victor Franklin Banks, to the podium. Mr. Banks is no stranger to us. He's been engaged in political life for the last 40 years here in Anguilla, and we welcome him here today to speak to us. So, Mr. Banks, I'd like for you to take a seat at the podium. The Honorable Mr. Curtis Richardson, Minister of Infrastructure, it's such a long title. Is here with us today, and I understand that he's stolen my name now. He wants to go by the name of Curtis Love. But I'd like to tell him that name has been trademarked, so we'll have to talk about it. But Mr. Richardson, we welcome your presence here today, and we ask you to take your seat at the head table. The Honorable Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge, as you know, is the Minister of, among other things, labor, which concerns immigration issues, is here with us today. And we welcome you, Mrs. Richardson Hodge, and ask you to take your seat at the head table. The Honorable Mrs. Everly Bradley, well known to most of us from her years at the Labor Department, and now as a parliamentary secretary in government, ministerial assistant, and we welcome you, Mrs. Bradley. And I just saw him walk in here, and he's trying to hide. But Mr. Perrin Bradley, who's all things, he's sitting right in front of me, who is responsible for all things taxes. And please be gentle with him today. He's a good man. He means well, and I wish we had a lot more young persons like him who's so committed to the development of Anguilla. Mr. Perrin Bradley, could you take a seat at the head table? And now I'd like to ask, beginning with the Chief Minister, to give some brief remarks. Remember that we are here today so that the members can get to talk to you. And politicians, once they get a chance to talk, they talk and talk and talk. So just limit your, give us an update on areas that you think are important to our membership, so that we will have sufficient time for our members to be engaged with you. The Honorable Mr. Victor Banks. Thank you.
Good morning. And thank you all for inviting us to the chamber for the second time since taking office. It's always been a pleasure for me to be involved in the activities of the chamber as Minister of Finance and Economic Development, which includes investment and commerce in particular. And I always say that this chamber would have been the third chamber that I would have inaugurated as Minister of Finance. And it's proving, I believe, to be one of the most successful chambers. So I want you to give the Chamber of Commerce, the board of the Chamber of Commerce, a round of applause for by virtue of your turnout here today, I know that there are a lot of things that you're interested in. And I fear that it'll probably take us a lot longer than Mr. Lake had anticipated or contemplated. Because one of the things I've found throughout my life in politics is that almost everybody has advice to give. And unfortunately, if you don't listen to what they say that you're not listening. But at the end of the day, what they're saying is that you're not taking my advice. And if I take everybody's advice, obviously, I will not be going any place because we are a totally confusing situation. So at some point in time, ministers of government have got to come to some conclusions about what it is they believe is in the best interest of Angola. And we are sure that at times that will not coincide with the views that other people hold. But Angola is a small place, and because of that, there's a lot of access. Access is important. It is something that is a part of the democratic process. Unfortunately, in small islands, there's sometimes a little too much access. And so therefore, you spend a lot of time doing the talking with people rather than actually having time to really address the issues that affect you. And because Angola is a small place with a small administration, sometimes it's difficult to serve everybody at the same time. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to make excuses or be defensive. I'm just here to say that it's a challenging job that we have to do, and what we need is your support. And we continue to believe that that support for the business sector in particular can only come from a chamber that speaks with one voice. And that's difficult to do. I'm sure that the board of the chamber also recognizes that it is difficult to get all the views of members of the business community together in one place, or to agree on a lot of things. But that is our job, and that is your job. So together we work to make sure that we can get the best outcome. The government of Anguilla came to office at a very critical time, and I'm sure that every government says that. So that's nothing new. But the fact is, we came to office at a period when a number of issues were affecting our development. First of all, we had 5 years of slow growth. We had 5 years during a period during which we were required more to focus as a government on balancing the budget rather than stimulating and growing the economy. We had 2 years at least where the banking sector had presented a challenge, and they went into receivership. So we came in office having to deal with these issues among so many other things. Critical to Angola's development is the performance of the economy. We have to continue to create jobs, create business opportunities, encourage investment, and make sure that people are in a position to take up those jobs and responsibilities within the economy. And that means that we have to continue to be on a course of training of people to take up those responsibilities at all levels. So those are the key responsibilities that I've always highlighted as important for taking Anguilla forward. The Chamber mentioned a number of issues that in the presentation from Mrs. Goddard, a number of issues which they believe are important to ensure that they can do an effective job and be successful in whatever business enterprises that they undertake. And when the private sector is successful, so too will the government and the people of Anguilla will be successful. So we're all in this together. You've mentioned the concerns with customs, you've mentioned the concerns with access, you've mentioned the concerns with a number of other areas. Let's call it a moment. There are 4 areas: customs, taxation, tourism, impacts on small businesses, and beyond tourism is means more in the line of diversification. Those are issues that were highlighted, as well as some sort of themes in those areas. And these are things that we, as a government, deal with on a daily basis. What are we doing? The Government of Anguilla, in its presentation, in our manifesto, said in page 21 that we would do a number of things. We had to improve the investment climate and enhance Anguilla's lure to potential investors. Develop and implement a balanced, planned investment promotion program and organization. Attract major domestic and foreign private capital to develop for-profit and not-for-profit business in varied economic sectors. Generate and support increased flows of major Anguillan investment by passing legislation and establishing various incentive programs for local investors. Adopt a growth-oriented investment policy and support it with enabling laws and legislation and regulations. Implement an incentives regime to aid local investors to make successes of their businesses. Develop policies on competition and prices, and consider establishing an industrial standards function, and in time, a standards union. Now, that is a very ambitious program, and in a number of areas that I've mentioned, we have begun to carry through those initiatives and put some of those programs in place. It's 6 months since this government has been in office, and it's an iterative process. And as we continue to learn more and more about the challenges we face, we continue to formulate and fashion solutions to them. It's important that as a Chamber of Commerce, you continue to have access to government and bring in your ideas and your vision, as well as your policies and programs that you believe would ensure that you are able to conduct good businesses. And Government of Anguilla wants the Chamber to continue to be the voice of Anguillan business and become the partner of first choice for information and guidance, and become the natural choice for business support. That is your role. Our role is to assist you in that process and create an environment in which that can be possible. Over the last couple of months, we have focused on a number of things, and of course, I will leave the various areas that the other members, staff, my team are involved in for them to express. Of course, Mr. Rogers is not here, and so I may touch as we go along on some of those issues as well. But the key issues that we have been dealing with, first of all, the Capsiluca project is a critical one, and in recent times we have been finalizing the memorandum of understanding with Capsiluca and preparing the business license so that that project can proceed with its effort to deliver the support that the services that is delivered to the tourism sector over the years. It has been the hallmark of Anguilla's tourism. And despite the fact that they've had these challenges for 3 years, where they have been back and forth on the issue of their legality, on the issue of having a business license, I think we are coming to that place where that issue is resolved. But the greater issue, of course, is the conflict, the dispute that continues to go on between the various owners and stakeholders in that project. And at this juncture, we believe that we are in a place where we can deal with those issues by negotiation between the parties involved, and at some time in the very near future, we have to come to some clear decisions about how we should operate that going forward. The indigenous banking sector, we continue to work with that, and as I said before, it is something that the Government of Anguilla has addressed itself to, and my ministry in particular over the last 6 months have been focused on getting a solution to the indigenous banking situation. We have had some key interest goals and objectives, as I pointed out so many times, to ensure that the interests of all customers are protected and treated fairly, to ensure that Anguilla retains a majority shareholdings in the indigenous banking sector, to ensure that the government will do what is required to fix the underlying economic situation on the island, so as to create more jobs, business opportunities, investment in training, enact laws that are fit for the purpose of implementing a resolution in the interest of the people of Anguilla, ensure that the jobs and benefits for staff of our indigenous banks are protected for the long run, and be certain to make adequate provision for an effective regulatory system in the future. So these are things that continue to take place. Our efforts in that direction, I believe that we are coming to a place where we'll be able to report on some form of resolution for discussion going forward. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is meeting by a video conference on Friday, and one of the items on the agenda will be the resolution proposal that has come out of discussions, debate, presentations from the IMF, the World Bank, the Caribbean Development Bank, Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Government of Anguilla, and of course the Foreign Accountant Office have been involved in that process as well. So we are hopeful that in an atmosphere of calm, we can get some resolution to this issue. There are a number of persons who have different views about what should take place. Our focus is on stabilizing the sector because we believe it's important for the Government of Anguilla and the people of Anguilla to have an environment where the indigenous banking sector can continue to provide the kind of support that we need for our development. There are other developments, of course, that have been taking place over the past months, and we have been exploring a number of opportunities in various areas of government. The investment in Anguilla is a critical part of that process, and as we continue going forward, you will see us talking about marina development. We'll be talking about development in the energy sector, alternative energy. Those are some of the issues that we have been addressing. We are trying to put incentives in place for creating more interest in Anguilla. And one of those issues, as I mentioned earlier, is the citizen residence by investment. We are trying to get involved in that aspect of investment, which has done wonders for a number of the territories in our region where there's citizenship by investment, but we believe we have the opportunity to encourage and incentivize investors to participate in our development via this medium. The attractiveness of Anguilla as a tranquil environment with sun, beaches, and low taxes make it a competitive jurisdiction for residents and citizenship planning. And when properly designed and marketed, this initiative program can yield considerable tax revenues. So we are proceeding with that as well. As far as the tourism sector is concerned, there are issues of access, and the newly installed tourism board and the Ministry of Infrastructure and Communication have been working on that. So I will allow Mr. Richardson to report on the developments in that area as well. Alternative Energy Committee is being revitalized to complete the work begun on climate change policies, and Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge will also report in that area. And we come to the area of constitutional electoral reform. Of course, with a mandate to complete the 15-year-old enterprise of constitutional and electoral reform, we have to move very quickly to do that. And the committee is now in place, and Mrs. Richardson Hart will report on that. We intend to have a reform and constitutional and electoral reform in place in the 18 to 24 months. We believe that it's important to deal with a number of issues affecting effective governance, participatory democracy, increased autonomy, and personal status. All these issues affect Anguillians and their ability to take on participate in our economic development. So it will have to do with issues of who should qualify for Anguillan belongership and who should participate in Anguilla's development as belongers, and so on and so forth. So those are some of the things that we will be talking about. Of course, in the discussions, in recent times, there's the issue of the public finance order, Anguilla public finance order, which has been attracting a lot of discussion, and I will allow Mrs. Richardson Hodge to speak on that, and then we'll come back at the end and respond to some of your specific needs. We believe that this is a team effort, and so we want to work through it as a team. The Chamber of Commerce has some specific concerns about improvements in the services that we provide for you through customs. I'm certain that a number of persons are concerned with the issue of business licenses and how they are granted, the policies involved with that. One member of the business community said to me that he said to the chamber, one of the members of the chamber, that he will not come to a meeting of the chamber unless the chamber begins to take on the role of issuing business licenses. So maybe that is something that we need to talk about going forward. At the end of the day, we are here to listen, and after that brief presentation, I will turn you over to Mrs. Cora Richardson Hodge to make her presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Let me first say that it's a pleasure to be here this morning. As was indicated in my introduction by Mr. Keith Lee Lake, I am the Minister of Labor, Immigration, Home Affairs, Environment, Constitutional Reform, and Gender Affairs. And working in my ministry with me is the Honorable Mrs. Everly Bradley, who is the District Representative for District Number 5, and she is also the Ministerial Assistant in my ministry. I'm cognizant as to the time we've been given 10 minutes, and so I will move quickly along. Mrs. Bradley will deal with some aspects of the ministry, and I will deal with others. The first section that I will deal with the department is the Immigration Department. You may have heard announcements being made that we have placed a hold on permanent residency applications. And that hold is in effect for about 6 months. So come February, applications can be submitted again. But the reason why there was a hold is that when we got into office on the 22nd of April, we found that there were over 200 permanent residency applications that had not been processed. And so there is quite a bit of backlog. And so we're taking the time to go through that backlog, bring it up to, go through those applications and review the permanent residency format, how we submit applications, etc., and then take it back out to the public in February. So as of now, there is a hold on permanent residency applications, but that process will continue from February of 2016. In the interim, of course, it's expected that we will deal with all of the backlog that we have that's there. In terms of the There's a policy on that we've gone to Executive Council and we confirmed it. In January of 2015, there was a proposal for a policy to waive immigration fees for children born in Anguilla and to exempt children who attended preschool, primary and secondary schools from obtaining a work permit. And of course, the reason for that is you have children that were born in Anguilla, have gone through the Anguilla school system. They don't know any other country other than Anguilla, but they have to obtain a work permit in order to be able to get a job. So in January of this year, under the previous administration, a policy went to Executive Council, and at that time the policy was approved, but it was subject to the AG's chambers reviewing and advising as to the legality of that policy. We're still awaiting a response from the AG's chambers in respect to that. But in the interim, in the Labor Department, what we have done is we have created a work permit exemption, and I'll get to that as I turn to the Labor Department section. In terms of Labor Code, there was a draft Labor Code that was in existence, and a few weeks ago, we were waiting initially for the document to come back again from the AG's chambers. A few weeks ago, that Labor Code was delivered to us, and we're in the process of reviewing it. The intent is to take it back out to the public for further public consultation so that we can get another round of views and positions in terms of the Labor Code before it's put into effect. But the idea is that certainly within a year of us having come into office, that new Labor Code will be in effect. I mentioned with respect to the work permit exemptions through the Labor Department, and we've come up with 5 work permit exemptions that persons can apply for and obtain once they meet the criteria. The exemption must be in relation to a job that has been advertised, not for the purpose of finding a job. So you can't apply for a work permit exemption without first having a job in hand. So you have to go through the interview process and be hired subject to obtaining this work permit exemption, or subject to obtaining your work permit. For persons working for a non-profit, cultural, educational, or charitable body, employment as a voluntary worker, which covers certain unpaid workers for a charity, a voluntary organization, an associated fundraising body, or a statutory body. So for volunteers, persons that serve on non-profit organizations, they are allowed to apply and obtain a work permit exemption. Persons who have attended primary and secondary school in Anguilla, covering a minimum of 5 years, and original school letters must be provided. So I mentioned that in terms of children of non-belongers being born in Anguilla and having to obtain a work permit. Persons like those that at least once they've attended at least 5 years of school here in Anguilla, they can apply for a work permit exemption so that they won't have to go through the work permit process like everyone else. But they will still have to submit an application. They'll have to submit a personal tax clearance, letter of intent, an application form, police record, and medical record. And this is, of course, for our internal record keeping, etc. at the department. But the job, again, must have been advertised. You cannot obtain the work permit first and then go job hunting after. Spouses of persons in essential services, including but not limited to medical doctors, air traffic controllers. However, the exemption must be in relation to a job being advertised for which there is no qualified Anguillan who can legitimately fill the position. And the final work permit exemption is for persons in the aviation industry. And of course, the reason for that is because we're trying to develop the aviation industry here in Anguilla. We recognize that there is a difficult time, especially right now, in these conditions, and so we're trying to encourage persons to be involved in the aviation industry and to build that up. We at the Labor Department as well, we have created an unemployment registry for Anguillians and other persons who are seeking jobs. And one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure that we fill as many positions as possible. I think graduation is today for our high schoolers, and we have over 160, I believe, well, 160 children graduated. So there's another set of young people that's going into the workforce that we need to find employment for. Many of them have, they've attended sixth form, they have the ability to work hard and work well, but they just need to be given the opportunity. And so what we've been doing at the Labor Department is as persons are applying for jobs, we're encouraging them to apply, to submit their application to the Labor Department as well. So that once applications come in, or there's a notice from an employer that they're seeking a job to be filled, then we will try as much as possible to see if we can match persons. We are giving the information to the employers for them to be able to see the qualifications of the persons that submitted their applications, and with a view of being able to interview them or determine whether or not they are fit for the job prior to, of course, the work permit for a work permit to be granted for someone else. And so we're encouraging young people and persons that are unemployed to sign up to submit their application or a letter indicating the type of job that they would like to apply for if they're unemployed to the Labor Department. The other topic I will discuss is the constitutional and electoral reform. You would have heard Mr. Banks indicate that the Constitutional Committee has been formed. The chairman of the committee is Mr. Don Mitchell, QC, and the other members are Mr. Caldwell Petty, the Honorable Mr. Stanley Reed, Mrs. Keisha Carty, Ms. Ariel Gaskin, who is a young person, attending in sixth form, Ms. Marie Houseford, who is the representative for the leader of the opposition, Ms. Joyce Kentish, QC, Mr. Alistair Richardson, representing the Dove, Ms. Christy Richardson, Harrigan, representing the Anguilla United Movement Party, Mr. Conrad Rogers, Mr. Stachel Warner, representing himself, and Mr. Tommy Astafan, QC, and Mr. John Benjamin, QC. And the purpose of this committee, of course, is to, in line with our Anguilla United Front Manifesto, which we say is a contract between us and the people of Anguilla, to come to prepare a proposal, a draft constitution that will be acceptable to the people of Anguilla, so that we can move forward in changing our, updating our constitution. I think our constitution in the region, at least in the overseas territories, is one of the oldest constitutions. We may be the only territory that still refers to the leader of the country as a chief minister as opposed to a prime minister. A premier, sorry. There will be subcommittees. So for persons that are interested in being a part of the Constitutional Committee, it is anticipated that subcommittees will be created for the various sections. So for instance, eligibility for the House of Assembly, belongership, who is entitled to vote. All of these sections will have subcommittees where the persons will, on those subcommittees, will review those various sections and come back with a draft or a position to be taken to the core committee. Just today, there should have been a press release that would have been sent out by the chairman of the committee, Mr. Don Mitchell, giving an update as to what has been taking place so far with respect to the Constitutional Committee and their progress. And the idea is that by December of this year, they will revert to us with a document, a working document that we can move forward on. There's been a lot of talk recently with respect to a draft document called the Anguilla Public Finance Order, dated the 9th of June 2015. And the reason why I'm speaking about it is because it came to us in the context of the constitutional and electoral reform. I met with Mr. Tim Colley, who is the Deputy Director of the FCO, on the 9th of June 2015. And that meeting came about because in 9th of October, 2015. And that discussion came about as a result of discussions, Mr. Tim Colley inquiring from Mr. Banks as to the Constitutional Committee and what was the status of the constitutional reform. He indicated that it was under my ministry, and so he asked if he could speak with me, which I agreed to. So during that discussion, we talked about a number of things that we would like to see that the Anguilla people, based on many discussions over the years, would like to have included in our constitution, such as allowing for grandchildren of Anguillans or belongers being recognized as belongers as well, and a number of other issues. We talked about the possibility of island-wide elections similar to the BVI context, etc. And during that discussion, Mr. Colley presented to me a document entitled the Anguilla Public Finance Order. It was a draft order in council, unsigned, but it seemed like it was revised and updated on the 9th of June, which suggests that there was a previous document that had already been prepared. He indicated to me during that discussion that there were certain provisions in that draft order that they would like to see included in our Anguilla Constitution moving forward. I had not seen the document before, so I looked through it and I said, well, I'll take it back, but I should tell you that unless it is that you're saying Anguilla is in a TCI position, then we would have a difficulty, or the Anguilla will have a difficulty with this being imposed on us. And the reason why I said that is because the document included in something called the Chief Financial Advisor, which is an advisor that will be appointed by the British government to come into Anguilla, sit in the Chief Minister's office, and be able, not in the chair, the Ministerial Finance, and sit in the Ministry of Finance and be able to overrule certain decisions, etc., of the elected representatives, the persons that were elected by the people of Angola. And so that meeting ended, and I gave a copy. I contacted Mr. Banks the Friday, gave him a copy on the Monday. But coming out of that, on the Thursday of that week, the Constitutional Committee met, and I presented a copy of the document to Mr. Mitchell. And the purpose of that document being delivered to Mr. Mitchell as the head of the Constitutional Committee was that the intent was that the Constitutional Committee would look and see whether or not there were any provisions in that draft document as suggested by Mr. Colley that they would think would be included. I have my personal views about it, and I would believe that every member of the Constitutional Committee would share a similar view. But I wouldn't want to preempt their views on it. So the document was delivered to them and distributed to them by the chairman. What is noticeable about that Anguilla Public Finance Order is that when I conducted my research and I looked at the TCI Constitution, the Constitution in Turks and Caicos Islands in 2012, 10 out of the 12 provisions are identical in the TCI Constitution. And if you would recall, in 2009, the British assumed control of the TCI government on the basis that there were allegations of corruption, that there was a committee that was actually held, and coming out of that, the findings were that there was a basis for the allegations. And so it is in that context the British came in to TCI. They did pump money into the industry, into TCI, and in exchange, I suppose that they were requiring that this chief financial advisor, etc., be appointed. That is not the case here in Anguilla. And so it is our view, and I'm speaking on behalf of the members of the Anguilla Unity Front, and my personal view, that this is something that we cannot allow or we cannot accept being imposed on us here in Anguilla. We will continue to be having discussions. We're asking for all hands on deck in terms of all of the politicians, all of the persons that have influence in our communities to come together to put down their political swords and see if we can find a way to work together and move forward so that we can deal with this issue as a country. Because if we're divided, then we're not going to get anywhere. And so with that, that is my presentation, my part of the Ministry of Environment, Home Affairs, Labour and Immigration, and I'll turn the rest over to Mr. Brandon.
Good morning to everyone. I must say that I feel well insulated here this morning to have my left, my minister on my son. We all know that as business people here this morning, one of your primary objectives is to be able to make a success of your business and to make a profit. And I believe that government also has a responsibility to be able to assist you in that area by putting the necessary policies and laws and legal infrastructure in place to be able to do that. One of the most important resources of any organization is the human resource. Human resource, people. And you can only move your business forward by having people working with you, people who have an interest in your business as well as you having an interest in your people. It must be a two-way street. And one of the campaign issues during the recent campaigning for election was the establishment of a minimum wage. We know that over the last 3 decades or so, that has been an issue that several governments have been attempting to solve, but nothing happened, it just fizzled out. However, this administration is committed to ensuring that this cycle is broken. The ministry, along with the Labour Department, therefore initiated some activity on this project, and we are cognizant of the fact that we do not have all the resources to enable us to do this on our own, and we have been able to get some assistance from the International Labour Organization in Trinidad, and we are pursuing this avenue. We are now in the process of putting together a broad-based committee, which we hope will be representative of most of the working categories on the island. And once that is done, I'm hoping that some of you in the business community will accept our invitation to be members of this committee. What has been recognized is that the law presently in Anguilla does not make provision for a national minimum wage. So it is expected, or it is anticipated, that we will try to do this from a sectoral point of view, looking at the different categories of workers in Anguilla, first beginning with the skilled and unskilled labor. I know that persons here in Anguilla have advanced several arguments about the pros and cons of a minimum wage, but we are here this morning for you to hear from us just as much as we are here to hear from you. And I know that one of the issues related to that is the performance of the economy. But it's expected that, as we dialogue, as we discuss, as we engage each other, then we should be able to come up with a structure that could be structure that everyone perhaps would be happy with. The next issue I would like to raise is, we all know that we have this phenomenon of the seaweed that is not only affecting Anguilla, but affecting the region throughout, the entire region here and throughout the Caribbean. And it threatens a very livelihood. I know that in some cases hotels have closed, there have been visitor cancellations, and here in Anguilla, our beaches, some of our beaches are very, very negatively impacted. And the ministry has been meeting with other stakeholders over the last couple of weeks to come up with a management strategy for the cleaning and the maintaining of the beaches. And as we meet here this morning, there has been a meeting going on in the ministry with other stakeholders with regards to having invited persons with heavy equipment and other persons who are interested in manual cleanup to take part in this government to community project, so that at least we can deal with this phenomenon that relates to the cleaning up of our beaches. Another issue that I would just like to briefly touch on is the question of the Gender Affairs Unit. This falls under our ministry as well, and it has been ably managed by Dr. Ronya Fall, who has been doing a phenomenal job as she strives to make a difference to the lives of men and women, boys and girls here in Anguilla. As a ministry, we have to really compliment her for the task that she's been doing. Just a few days ago, we met with the newly elected executive of the umbrella organization for women's groups, the Anguilla National Council of Women, and we are excited just as much as they are to collaboratively work with them to advance the women's agenda here in Anguilla. Rwanda has a number of contacts with external agencies, UN Women, where she has access to funds and other technical resources. And an area of interest which the ministry has expressed assistance in is the sustainable development and economic empowerment of women with a view to encouraging and furthering the efforts of the women in agriculture and entrepreneurship. I must say that the cleanup of the seaweed around beaches begins tomorrow. So basically that's it from me.
Pleasant good morning to all. I think she meant to say the continuation of cleaning up the beaches will start tomorrow. As you all know, I did clean up the Blowing Point beach, and I was chastised for not going through the right process, but I think I had my heart in the right place, and the beaches will be clean. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I'm going to go through as nicely and as smoothly as I can on a number of matters. Firstly, I'm going to talk about airlift. LIAT told me in a meeting 2 days ago that they are going to further discontinue their service to Antigua. That's going to start from October the 25th to November the 5th. It's going to be about 2 weeks. And that's mainly because they are having some challenges with the union, and they are hoping that in a meeting sometime this week or next week, they could have that sorted out and tell us how they're going to resume services to Anguilla. As you know, the route to St. Thomas has been severely challenged for quite some time, and we have been trying as a government to see how we can support some of our local airlines to take up the challenge, as well as find other ways to deal with that. But that is still ongoing. I myself have been trying to do a lot of moral suasion in that regard, but I don't know if the business, in the airline business, there seems to be other considerations that is creating a major challenge for them to take up that route. I have had 4 persons that are interested in airport expansion, and 3 of them are interested in expanding the airport and then seeing how expanding the airport can bring better air access and airlift to Anguilla. But one of them has a particular interesting model where his business model demands the expansion of the airport. So we as a government, by the end of this year, 2015, will make a determination as to how we intend to proceed with the airport expansion. And my chief minister will give me significant guidance there, and we should be able to come to the Anguilla business public as well as the residents and tell them how we intend to go ahead with increasing air lift and air access into Anguilla. In this regard, in terms of getting to Anguilla, we have also been given a lot of thought to the overnight ferry service. We are determined to have it done, but we have to work out a lot of the logistics in regards to customs and immigration, and we are going to be working on that in the next few weeks so that we can see what we can do to get the overnight ferry service back on track. In regards to roads, we are doing general repairs and upgrades. We are not extensively dirting roads, as you may have seen the practice was before, because it's just wasted money in a lot of instances. You dirt the roads, the vehicles take the dirt out when it's wet, and you keep on going through. So bear with us, because I have a new program that I'm trying to get in place where we will try to assist those persons and respond to persons whose roads are severely bad. But if your road just needs a few potholes filled, we will do that, so it's passable for you. But we intend to engage on a program where as many roads between now and in the future where we can get them chip and seal. I think if we take some time and chip and seal one and chip and seal another one, Eventually, over a period of time, we'll have longer lasting roads rather than just rushing out the corridor and trying to dot everything. As you know, there is a cut that was made from Standard Ground to South Hill, the famous cut. That was an investigative approach to minimize all of the chatter as to whether or not a road can be put in from South Hill to Standard Ground. Now that the chatter has ceased, and it is known to all in Anguilla that it is possible to put a road in from South Hill to Standard Ground, we are going to put in the budget, I'm trying to get it in the budget for next year, that road will be properly established for the people of Anguilla. I've also taken out considerable discussions with owners of property in North Hill, and we have an established route as well that goes from Standard Ground to North Hill. And after we have established properly the route from South Hill into Standard Ground, we will then see if we have the financing to take on the road from Standard Ground into North Hill. But it will be done. The same thing goes for the Valley Main Road. I've given a commitment, and my Chief Minister is going to support me financially as much as is possible. And that commitment I'm giving to the people of Anguilla is that the Valley Main Road will be done by the end of 2017. But some people have been pushing me for August of 2017. So, same thing as with the water. I may be a few months behind, but it will be done in 2017, by the end of 2017. Charity begins at home. As you know, the Standard Ground Road is not in my constituency, and the Valley Main Road is not in my constituency. So I also will be putting in the budget for 2016 a road to be done beginning at Louis Price's gym, going all the way back out to the Lockrum Highway. If you're not familiar with that road, you should take some time and drive it. It's a road that goes into Louis Price's gym, goes around into a big residential area, and goes all the way back onto the Jeremiah Highway. And that road is a very important road. I will be taking my Chief Minister out to see why it is important. It's important because if you're on the southern side of the Jeremiah Highway, you don't have to come up George Hill or go around Blowing Point to get back over to South Hill. So that road is going to be a very important road for the business community in Anguilla. I'm also looking to change the reconfiguration at the George Hill stoplight. I think that most of you would agree that in the evenings, especially around 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, the traffic there is becoming unbearable. So in a very short time, as short as is possible, not my kind of short, because my kind of short would be to go out there today and just put it in. But I'm trying to follow the procurement process. I'm looking, starting today, to go out with my technical people to try to see if we can put in a lane that will facilitate people to go directly from George Hill straight down the Jeremiah Highway, so that the amount of people stopping for the stoplight does not back up the traffic there in the afternoon. As you know, we're putting on dikes. Dikes have been hacked several times, but we have been able to deal with that. We are putting the government information up, so you all should take some time to go there, and also the Executive Council minutes. I've had 2 proposals for housing projects, not the kind of hotel developmental projects, but regular people who are interested in establishing regular homes for persons who are interested in purchasing homes, and this is ongoing. One of them have purchased the land in the Shoal Bay area, and they are working on the program. I've had 2 developers came to me yesterday in regards to going on with 2 large projects here on the island. And the reason why they came to me and I took them over to the Chief Minister thereafter was because they have a unique approach to building. And as you know, I am the Minister for Infrastructure, so I had to examine the method by which they intend to build. And we will continue to look further into that and support as many projects as we can for the advancement and upliftment of Anguilla. I've just received the 2006 ASPA Business business plan, and we are now reviewing it, and I'm going to take it to Executive Council, which may be the first time that it has gone to Executive Council for approval. And I'm doing that because I believe that the business of ASPA not only impacts my ministry, but it also impacts the Ministry of Finance as well as the other ministries. We have the approval for a new fire building and a new tower facility, and that is going to go on procurement next week. We're trying to get it out this week, but definitely by next week, the procurement process to get a builder for the new fire station and the new tower building, that will be out. We continue to try to deal with getting the funding in place to fix the Sandy Ground Pier. As you know, that is the main port for importations and exportations there, and it is severely in need of repairs. Anglic, our main power supply here in Anguilla, we have just purchased 1 megawatt of solar power acquired through a loan by CDB. I went to Martinique about 2 months ago, and I met with the people for the Clinton Foundation, and I was able to re-establish our relationship with them. As you know, they have a major interest in renewable energy, and we have been able to re-establish our relationship with them, and they are coming back into Anguilla in the very shortly, very briefly. They should be here sometime by the beginning of November to establish an office and to help us push ahead with our renewable energy program. The Anglic board, as it may come to your knowledge, 3 members on that board is up. The membership is going to, the directorship will be up the end of this month, and we should be getting 3 new directors in place, as those 3 persons have not put themselves back up for election. So you might have at least 3 people changing on the board of Anglic. Our government is committed to renewable energy, as is outlined in our manifesto, and we will be continuing to push in that regard. The racetrack is something that I took up when I came to office, and I worked very hard on it. And we were able to come to a place where we were looking at getting the lease sorted out for the land. But because of the workings in it, it has gone over to the Ministry of Sports. So the Ministry of Sports has now taken up full responsibility for pushing forward with the racetrack. Fire and rescue. I did say there's a new fire station that is also going to be a part of the overall development there at the airport. But when we came to office, I had to go in there to lift the morale, and one of the things that I felt was necessary was to upgrade the living quarters for the persons who serve in the fire and rescue service. We did that, and they are quite happy and they are quite pleased. And from all accounts, the entire morale have been lifted. Water, as you know, we campaigned on our promise was that we will fix it. And I have been heckled in some quarters because I have given a lot of dates by which I would have it fixed. Because I was zealous, I said I would have it fixed by August the 1st, and being zealous was not enough. And then I said I'll have it fixed by September the 1st, and that did not materialize. I said August the 1st, and we had some setbacks and some challenges, but I'm happy to report that the entire water plant has now been totally installed and is going to be fired up soon, and we intend to have it commissioned sometime in early November. We must give a lot of praise to the persons who elected me, and because he elected a sensible person, and I did a very simple thing. I then went out and did exactly what they did. I put sensible people on the board to go ahead and get the water in place for the people of Anguilla. And so when you see people like Mark Romney, you must commend him highly for the effort that they put in, and Chris Richardson, Serena, and Maurice, and so forth. And when you learn the members on the board, give them your respect and give them some acknowledgement because they have done a tremendous job. The water was in a deplorable condition, and I think it is extremely commendable that in just within 6 months they could have fixed that entire situation for the nation. Agriculture, Athlete Van der Poel is working with me in agriculture and fisheries, and he's also doing a tremendous job there with me and for me. In agriculture, we were able to meet with all the farmers and we are working hard on the policy. We are committed to giving them special rates on the water, but we also charge them that we do not want some of the stories that we've been hearing of farmers filling the assistance and so forth from the special rates for the water. But we also have made a decision, and we are working on the exact schematics of that, to give a lot of the land that has remained untouched in the back of the agricultural at the plot. We are now in the process of portioning that land out so that farmers can have that land to get back into serious agriculture here in Anguilla. And we as a government are committed to supporting all of our farmers in whatever regards and whatever their needs are. Fisheries, as you know, Sambiro has been nominated to be a Ramsar site, and we thank Kathy Gums, a young lady there, the director of fisheries. She is a very competent and a very hard-working individual, and we're very pleased to have her and her staff. And that is why Sambiro has been nominated as a Ramsar site. I attended a number of conferences within the region to deal with fishing, and you will hear much more on that. But one of the things we have been able to do, especially with Kathy's work, we were able to get significant funding for fishing development here in Anguilla. So comment her whenever you see her. The food court in the valley, we have had to address some of the problems with the food court, which was complaints from residents about the noise that is going on all till 4 o'clock in the morning, as well as people disturbing the church and using the church property for reasons that the church definitely will not sanction. So we've had to deal with that, but we continue to find ways to address the overall aesthetics of the food court. When you go there, you'll see that some of the stalls are very well and nicely built. I think Sean Boy, he has one of the better stalls, and we're trying to get everybody to come to that standard. But we are in the process of having some drawings done, and everybody will have to come to that specific standard. So we're going to have a drawing done, and government will either decide that one contractor will build all of them, or that everybody will have to build to a specific style and standard. We continue to look at the health issues there as well. As you know, you're dealing with food, and we have had 3 meetings with them in regards to paying up their fees and bills and permits and so forth, and also putting proper water supply to all of the food stalls. So we are working in that regard. And lastly, under my ministry is telecommunications. I've attended several conferences overseas, which is very good for me because that is one of the areas that I don't really have a lot of knowledge and expertise in, telecommunications, but I'm growing fast. And we have had serious discussions in regards to roaming charges in the region, and we are looking as soon as is possible 2017 to do away with roaming within the Caribbean region. So that is what we as ministers are working on with the telecommunication providers, and we are very hopeful. There's also a major discussion we have had with over-the-top services such as your WhatsApp and Viber, all of these free services. The telecommunication providers would like to see certain things done so that people pay for that, but we have resisted that. And quite wisely, as politicians, we have to always try to go with what is the needs and demands of the public, except when we are convinced that it is not serving the public's best interest. There is a possible third provider for telecommunications that will be coming to Anguilla. I've had an application made to the PUC for a third provider. As you know, we had a third provider, WebLinks, but I don't think that they have been in operation or the status of their license. So we have had someone else apply, and the Public Utilities Commission is going to make a determination as to whether or not they're going to allow a third provider to come back into the market. But I'm just informing you so that if you hear it, you will know that it is something that someone has applied for a license. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to your questions.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the Chamber for the invitation. This opportunity fits right into one of the things I've pledged to do during my tenure as Controller of the Revenue, which is to spend more time and engage more with the public and the business community, because we do understand that the business community is where all the magic happens. And as Mr. Banks said, we're just supposed to provide a nurturing environment to make sure that you can go out and produce and get the job done. Now, having looked at the presentation done by Belinda and being commissioned by the Chamber, I recognize that taxation seems to be the biggest issue surrounding the Chamber and its membership. And as being the chief tax collector, that's obviously my business. I certainly appreciate that it's a tough time and why taxes matter to people and so forth. But our approach has always been to try to broaden the base and lower the burden for all concerned. Because I don't believe, to be frank, that we would maximize the full efficiency of the current tax system. There's still a lot more that we can do in terms of increasing efficiency. And that's one of the things we'd like to do in terms of, rather than talking about new taxes, additional taxation, I think it would be wise for us to consider what are the opportunities that we can achieve under our existing tax system. Having said that, a big part of it is, from our standpoint, is an aggressive stance when it comes to compliance. Because in addition to our folks complaining to us about high taxes, there are also those who complain that, why is it my neighbor doesn't pay, or my competitor doesn't pay, but I have to pay. So there's an issue of fairness to the whole thing as well. So that's why we have to be very much more aggressive with regard to compliance. Now I'm going to put up a slide that I want everybody to pay close attention to. This is the situation as it is here in Anguilla today. That's $30 million in arrears at the end of 2014. Property tax $9 million, accommodation tax $3 million, tourism revenue 8.8 million, and ISL 1.3. Leases $7 million, business licenses $7 million in arrears. That's at the end of 2014. Now, we know how the Chamber's fund is a very innovative way that a percentage of business licenses fees goes across to funding the Chamber of Commerce, right? Which is why for us, having such a large array of business licenses, it's a problem for you, it's a problem for us as well. So I just want folks to be mindful of the situation. It's not a joke. That represents 3 years of the ISL. There's so much we can do with that. Now, again, we appreciate that. It's a very tough environment. Folks are having a tough time. We get it. We understand completely. We understand completely. But at the same time, we have to deal with this situation. We plan to take a very aggressive stance and solve it out. Now, a lot of this is historic stuff. So folks may say, oh, it's due to the recession, things are tough. But a lot of this stuff is historic. For instance, in property tax, it's always had a very low compliance rate. Right now, the compliance rate for property tax is about 40%, which means more than half of Angolans don't pay property tax for whatever reason. And those are the kind of things that we really need to be honest with ourselves about and tackle this situation. It's not fair that some pay and some don't pay. There's got to be a level playing field. There's got to be equality. There's got to be some way of leveling the playing field for our concern, for us to operate.
Are those figures US or EC?
EC.
EC.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, to improve compliance, one of the things we wanted to take on was, again, forums like this, we can actually engage with the public, and again, have the conversation, raise public awareness. But we feel that once persons are aware of their obligations and their responsibilities, it makes a difference to the compliance. So over the coming weeks, we're going to do a series of seminars and engage with the public more, and the chambers that we partner up with us in terms of developing the material and so forth, going out to the public and engaging and having seminars and workshops. The first one is going to be with, I have to check the office, but I think they've made some initial contacts with the Hotel and Tourism Association to talk to the CFOs of the hotels, to have a chat about the whole accommodation tax. You know, what's supposed to happen and when you're supposed to file and all these different things. And I think that's in the planning stages. So there's a lot we're going to do in the coming weeks in terms of raising awareness and engaging with the public and having that conversation about our situation. Now, while this is being done, we're also internally cleaning up our records, because there's a lot that we need to do at the Nanaimo as well. A lot of record keeping and making sure that our accounts are straight. Because the last thing we want to do is send a bill to somebody when they come back with a receipt that they paid 2 or 3 years ago and we just didn't record it properly. So there may be episodes of that too. So we're trying very hard to get our side of it cleaned up as well. We're also beefing up our human resource element. We just hired a new collections manager, Mr. Kiel Khan, back in June. Because of his efforts, he's already paid for himself in the next, just in a few months, in terms of being, again, aggressive in terms of going out to collect and engaging with persons and collecting this money. Now, strangely enough, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we just never asked. There was somebody that had a lease for about 5 years, lease government property for 5 years. And of course, now that we're paying attention to these issues, when we went out to him, he said, oh, but nobody never asked me, never got a bill. Oh, by the way, here's the money, you know, and it was as simple as that. So we're pretty sure that a lot of these issues just have to do with us not doing a better job of going out and actually saying, knocking on the doors and just start listening up. Now, Anguilla is a very small place, so for that number that you see there, we know who each and every person is that actually owes that money. We know which entity, we know exactly who those persons are. So at some point, are we going to end up on your doorstep? You're going to get that notice. So call us before we call you. Yeah, call us before we call you. Because it limits, if we have to call you, it limits your options in terms of resolving these things. It really does, right? All we're saying is engage with us in a healthy and respectful way. Whatever your situation is, let's let them talk about it, we'll figure it out. Several persons have taken that approach and have been able to leave the office smiling, because a lot of times the situation is not as bad as you think it is, and there are options, there are ways we could deal with these situations. What we don't want to do is get in a situation where we start to be inconsistent and unfair. I can't have somebody saying that we treated Mr. X this particular way and we treated Mr. Y differently. It doesn't work if some people get away and some don't. There's got to be fairness, there's got to be equity. We have to do these things across the board, we have to be consistent. So that's the kind of approach we want to take. We are also very willing to engage in problem solving. Let's see if we can find a solution to what the situation is. But to not engage with us, to not say this is a problem, to not come forward and not acknowledge that there's a debt, whether we have to figure out what the right amount is. But whatever the situation, we'll be saying, engage with the department, let's see if we can figure it out. Again, we won't know until you tell us what your situation is. Because there are options and remedies, nuclear options, that are written into the law as is, as we speak. In NLR, you can tell you, if you look at the Inland Department Act, if you look at the act having to do with accommodation tax and so forth, the penalty is like 20% of the amount owed and so forth. So that's something to note for the accommodation sector, that, you know, the penalties are there, they're very serious, but before we go down that road, you know, let's see if we can figure this thing out. And that is exactly what we've been doing, and we've been coming up with some very good solutions to a lot of these things. But again, it starts with us having a good dialogue. Because remember, a debt owed to the state is considered a civil debt and it's enforceable through the court. So already as is on the books, the court can order that your property be seized. It can order that you can garnish your wages. It can order that you can seize your property and sell it and so forth. Those things are already in the law, right? But again, before you get anywhere close the courthouse steps, we're saying, let's just sit down and have an honest conversation about these things. It's not, because there's no interest in putting you in a business or taking your property. There's no state interest in doing that. But if you are deliberately evading taxes, it's a whole lot of kettle of fish. But if you're having a tough economic situation, if something's going on with your business, all they're saying is tell us what the situation is for you. Because again, I like to repeat, there's no public interest in putting in a business just to be spiteful or mean or high-handed or heavy-handed. There's no point to any of that. Not at all. But what we're calling for again is more engagement with the community. Now, I don't know if you can see this slide, but this is again a textbook approach to tax compliance and so forth. In that you go all the way up for people who have decided not to comply, and of course you have to use the full force of the law. Then there are those who don't want to comply. So what you do is you try to deter those folks from taking a chance and protecting them. And then there are those who try to, but they don't always succeed. So what you have to do is make it a little easier for them to do so. And then there are those who are all willing to do the right thing, which is the majority of Anguillians coming in, and we just have to make it easier for those folks to engage with us. Right now, we just got approval to start testing the acceptance of credit cards. Again, that's low-hanging fruit. That's not the clap about it. That we should be doing that 10 years ago. But anyway, better late than never. So we did get permission recently to start testing credit card machine. But ultimately, you want to get to a point where you can just take them home, put your credit card in, and pay us online. But it's going to take us a while to get some baby steps. We're also going to make online banking available. You can pay property tax and so forth through online banking. Technically, it's doable right now, but again, test it and work on the kinks before we can actually launch it full time. Now, in terms of resolving a lot of the tax issues, we can offer payment plans, we can do deferrals and so forth. And in some cases, there's actually relief because written in the law, Executive Council can write off one of the taxes to the government. Again, we don't want to encourage it because it all starts with, again, having an honest conversation about your situation. And if it is determined that it's in the state's interest and best interest to resolve the matter in that way, but then again, that comes after a series of engagements so we can understand, where we're going. But we also are going to recognize that the tax year also comes down to having a healthy environment and strong economy. Because if things were bubbling, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. And Mr. Banks laid out a pretty good case as to what the government is doing. I don't have the luxury of doing that. I'm the taxman. I have to focus on whatever falls out of the tree. They're supposed to shake the tree and catch what falls out. But I know that there's a lot that's going on in terms of trying to get the economy going. I know that my colleagues in the economic development unit, Mr. Rogers and his team are working hard to try to get things going and resolve and capture the issue. Citizen Pay, Resident Pay Investment Program, and a whole host of other things to try to track FDI and make the economy going again. Folks are talking about the concessions, the way government handles those. Talk for years that there's no consistency, there's no rationality to the whole thing. So those are the sorts of issues that we're trying to figure out now to make things a bit, again, comes down to fairness and equity. One of the last points I want to make, again, I know it sounds like doom and gloom, but this is the reality of the situation. I think we need to be honest with ourselves about this tax arrear situation. I don't accept that entire $30 million is due to economic reasons. I think folks have kind of figured out if you don't pay tax in Angola, nothing happens. There are no consequences. I think people have kind of come to that conclusion. And just the same way that a lot of members are complaining about the tax burden and so forth, a lot of them also complain that it's just not fair. Some folks are paying and some are not paying. Right? And those are the kind of things that we're trying to fix and we're trying to tackle to make things fairer. But in conclusion, we're trying to take a much more deliberate approach to these issues. We're trying to get more consistency and more fairness built into the tax program, because I think if we were to broaden the base, if everybody paid their fair share, the burden comes down for everybody else, and everybody else could go on in their way and be a whole lot happier. If everybody paid their fair share, probably wouldn't need to come with something like the ISL, you know. So those are the kind of things that you really need to consider. So again, I'm inviting, if there are any issues, you know, just give us a call and let's sit down and see if we can figure it out. There are options available and so forth. So let's reason together. Let's have an honest conversation, and let's be upfront about what the situation is. If it's due to economic reasons, we get it completely. But we will only know that if you have an honest conversation with us. So all I'm asking is for a little honesty, a little openness, more collaboration, more communication. And again, thanks to the Chamber for actually offering to work with us on a lot of these public awareness issues. Because it's an Anguilla thing, and I think we all in it together. If you all try to figure it out together, we can come up with something very good and useful for all concerned. So thank you.
I'd like for everybody to give the ministers a big hand. And now we come to the point of the whole meeting. The panel is here for you to question, for you to present what your issues are, and hopefully we'll have a good, lively, and honest discussion. So now I turn the floor over to the membership. When you get to the microphone that's in the middle of the room, please state your name and your organization, and then you ask the question so that we at the Chamber can keep track of the person and the issues so that we can follow up these things after this meeting. So now, members, it's your turn.
Good morning. Good morning. Is it on? You hear me good?
Yes.
All right, this might take a little while. I gathered some thoughts last night as I knew I was coming here, and I have a current situation for government to deal with. The previous administration created a manufacturing policy that is a very good policy to assist existing businesses and also to encourage entrepreneurs to get into the business of manufacturing. There are many light products that can be produced right here in Anguilla that can help the economy get back on track with employment and also exportation. But what is needed is the passage of this manufacturing policy. Since this government got into office, I have been trying to get duty-free concessions renewed for tropical treats. I have met with you, Mr. Banks, on several occasions, and the conversations were encouraging. But these concessions that I had, they expired in January of 2015. Now we are in October, and since the expiration of those concessions, I have been paying full duties on most of my raw material that I use to produce the product called tropical treats. I am again paying 50% duties on crushed cookies. Crushed cookies that is used as a raw material to make my product. Meanwhile, my competition, whether it's Haagen-Dazs or Bluebell, they come in at 21%. We are rewarding outside products, outside businesses, instead of focusing on our local small businesses and giving them the advantage. I am tired of begging. I'm very, very tired. Small businesses here are hurting. There needs to be some type of urgency from your government as it relates to the renewal of concessions for tropical treats and also the passage of the manufacturing policy. I am looking forward to hearing something positive within the next House of Assembly meeting. And I am looking forward right now to hearing you, Mr. Banks, put a timeline on these type of things. The small business community need help in it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Hodge. I'm not even aware of the fact that the extension of the GDP concession, which was a temporary measure, as we proceed with the legislation that is necessary for the manufacturing policy. As far as I know, the manufacturing policy is that you're referring to is a couple of lines on one page that the Government of Anguilla is granting importers, manufacturers, the right to import goods free of duty in these specific areas, and it was done for your business. I'm not sure where it is in the system. You haven't spoken to me for a couple of weeks, maybe months. So I'm not aware of where it is in the system. When we spoke, it was progress through the system. I would have thought that by now that your GDP concession has been extended. I don't know whether Mr. Carter can speak to that. I'm not aware of it in the system. So it is something that I have to look into when I go back to office.
Yeah,
I promise you that.
Thank you. You guys passed concessions in Exco. We spoke and you gave me that assurance that...
That's concessions next go, right?
Right,
Okay.
but it has not made it to the House of Assembly for final approval. So it's still not in effect. So I'm wondering when you meet the next time in House of Assembly, if the concessions for tropical trees will be finally approved,
Yeah.
because it passed Exco, right?
But the matter passed Exco, as you said, in July. So I am not aware of why it has not gone to the House of Assembly. I'm not aware of what happened. But I'll guarantee you that the next House of Assembly is on November 3rd. I will do everything to make sure it gets there.
Thank you.
This is indeed a very good meeting, and I won't speak to the issue of water, because you know, the water contract is a pre-existing contract that was signed by the previous water board, and the new government has just continued to follow through with that. So it's just a continuation of that. But I rise in support of tropical treats, not only tropical treats, but manufactured in Anguilla. First and foremost, Mr. Banks, you say that you're not aware of why this did not reach the Executive Council. It is the responsibility.
It reached Executive Council.
No, why it hasn't reached the House?
I'm not aware.
It is the responsibility of the Government of Anguilla, in particular the Executive Council, to put items on the agenda for the House of Assembly. That is a long-established policy. It has been there since 1976. So I don't know. Now, as it relates to tropical treats and manufacturing in Anguilla, this manufacturing policy came about through hard work by myself, Kyle Hodge, who brought it to me in 2010. And it's a lot more than just 2 lines on a piece of paper. A lot more, Mr. Banks. And if you want me to provide you a copy so you can refresh your memory, I can do so. Because when I left a lot. Be that as it may, the manufacturing policy, the way it is drafted, it was approved not only by the Executive Council, on several occasions, but it was also approved in the House of Assembly in Parliament in Anguilla, which gives rise to that policy being enforced. Now, Tropical Treats is not the only company in Anguilla that should have benefited from the manufacturing policy. There's a number of other companies, such as Paradise Island, the company that produces soaps and so forth, Anguilla Aluminum, the salt company and so forth. All of these companies born and bred in Anguilla, form part of their manufacturing policy. It envisions to give them 10 years duty-free concessions from the time they notify the minister and the Ministry of Finance. It gives them that. But not only that, all of the companies that I just mentioned went to the House of Assembly, went to the Executive Council, which it wasn't necessary to do so because it specifies how this starts, when it starts and how it starts. But it went to the House of, to the Executive Council for further ratification. There has been a serious bottleneck that has been happening relating to the public service, the technical staff, and Travis is here and he's fully aware of that. His predecessor, Mr. Kenrick Richardson, he's fully aware of that. We are all fully aware of that. Not only every single day, I harass, I call, I email relating to this thing. So that's where the bottleneck is. The bottleneck isn't so much, and maybe you need to refresh yourself on these, but Kyle Hodge and Tropical Treats should not be applying for a duty-free concession. Because just how we can give foreign direct investors 20 years duty-free concessions, and sometimes we don't go to the house, but it has been going to the house. 20 years duty-free concessions, and they don't have to come back for further duty-free concession unless it changes the scope of that. So too, we should be able to ensure that our local manufacturers do not have this harassment and this stress. He should not need a duty-free concession. It's already in the manufacturing policy, and it's a very comprehensive policy that was discussed through ministries, through the chamber, and so forth. So hopefully we can see this happen. And again, I say, does not need to go back to the House of Assembly. So make sure that is sorted out. So there's a lot, and I'm not saying that you're making this, maybe you're not aware of the issues. I know you have a lot of pressure on you these days, but we stand in support of you to alleviate the pressure wherever it comes. So this is important because there's a lot of other opportunities that can be developed within our industry, within Anguilla, in terms of creating stuff from tomatoes and all the other products that we produce and have excess of. But I just want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having this very important meeting. Very important meeting so that we can dialogue. And I want to follow up quickly on the issue of the technical staff, the ministers of government, the executive council, and efficiency in Anguilla. Because Mr. Bradley, who's in charge of tax collection, he spoke about taxes and tax collection. In 2010, the Executive Council, 2011, the Executive Council approved a paper that seeks to put bank machines in every hotel establishment so that accommodation tax can be paid immediately. The technical staff, and I say that with all due respect to Mr. Bradley, he wasn't there, but he started work on it after he came there. The technical staff made every excuse, even though the banks were willing to do it. There are people in here, like Ms. Haskins, I saw her earlier, who kept asking the question, why is this done? 2011, 2010, we're in 2016, basically, and it hasn't been done. I spent 16, 17 years in the hospitality industry. With all due respect to the hoteliers in here, we all rob the people in Anguilla. Because we all, it's on a system. The officer goes down to the hotel, collects a check. You give him a check, there's no back checking. Now, I have made representation in writing and verbally to the tax collectors, and parents can bear me out, that we don't need any cadre of staff to go down in the hotels and collect our tax, because the accommodation tax is charged on 10% of the rack rate, and the service charge is charged on 10% of the rack rate. So you should be paying out a $10 service charge and $1 accommodation tax. So you don't need the technical expertise. You should say, okay, how is it that you're paying the Government of Anguilla $1 accommodation tax and paying the staff, because there's a service charge committee through the law, through the labor ordinance, that gives the staff the opportunity to look over the figures to verify whether or not the service charge is correct. So you're paying the staff $10 service charge, but you're paying the people of Anguilla, the Government of Anguilla, $1 in accommodation tax. Look at the figures. Say, hey, that is easy until you have the technical areas of how you can really police this. These are things that have represented, parents can hear me out. You know, a lot of the things that we are talking about here today, we have discussed this, we have written about it for, at least in my time, 5 years. And nothing has been done. And nothing has been done, not so much because of the government of Anguilla per se. I'm not here to blame the government as the government here. Because we don't have the motivation in this country to follow laws, to follow up, and to police them. And that is why we have the Litter Abatement Act. And you see the trucks driving up and down uncovered, even though there are serious penalties, and nobody is doing anything about it. I wrote to commissioners of police. I spoke to police officers about it. I addressed it several times, and everybody look and see the litter flying all over this country. All right? So until we, as a people, and as a government, find ways within ourselves to do what is right for this country, we ain't going nowhere. That $30 million and turned to $60 million in 5 years, and we ain't gonna do nothing about it. That's all I have to say on this issue. Take care of tropical trees and the manufacturers.
Very much surprised in your presentation, Mr. Hughes, in connection with the manufacturing policy. Because I would have assumed that the manufacturing policy was in place.
Yes, it is.
It passed in the House of Assembly.
Yes, it is.
There'd be no reason for Mr. Chavez, Mr. Hodge, to have to engage in free concession. So there's something wrong. There's a gap right there which we need to research. And Kyle, come in, we'll sort it out. With regards to the other issues about accommodation tax, recognize that this is something that we've been struggling with for a long time. And to be quite truthful, the majority of the non-collections in property taxes, not necessarily from the large hotels, is from other sectors.
I didn't say property tax, accommodation tax.
Accommodation tax, that's what I mean, sorry. Not necessarily from large hotels, but from the other sectors. So it's something that we need to work with. I'm not sure whether having a credit card machine where you commit the guests to paying his own property tax is something that is a friendly way of dealing with this issue. I think that it should be done centrally, and government and the agencies responsible for collecting government's property tax should be made to hand it over, and the accounting process must take place. So I don't see this as an issue there. I want Perrin to comment on that, because you mentioned something about 1% combination tax and 10%. And that's always an anecdote to me. Hold on.
Sorry, Mr. Banks, I didn't say 1%. What I said is that the rate, the combination tax is 10% of the rate. You can hear me?
I hear you. Yeah.
The service charge is 10% of the rate. You know, the restaurants charge sometimes up to 15% of the rate. So when you go to the hotel and they give you the check for accommodation tax for a particular month, right? It should more or less mirror that of the service charge figure. There shouldn't be a huge variance between the service charge figure and accommodation tax, because all the hotel is the tax collector holding in escrow the money for the government of Anguilla. So that is what I'm addressing. So it's not a percentage thing. I'm just giving $1 to $10. There shouldn't be a huge variance as it relates to that. And again, on the issue, I think it shouldn't have to be a duty-free concession, but follow up and make sure that happens. I have your commitment on that.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Hughes. I think it's a matter that you and I had spoken about for more than a few times. And if you recall our presentation, one of the things we're going to do is actually beef up our compliance functions. And the reason why I was late today, because we're actually interviewing somebody for the auditor position, and that's one of the things that we are planning to get serious about. That was a position, it's on the organizational chart. The person that occupied the position left us back in May and June. And we're now in the process of trying to find somebody really, really good to take on those sorts of issues. But again, it goes back to our whole approach to compliance. If we continue to accept the honor system and don't go check every now and then I suspect we probably will be shorted. There was a report done in 1997, and it said that accommodation tax was more or less underreported by about 10% based on some analysis that they did. And I'm pretty sure it's probably something similar probably was by now. But we do take your point, and again, just this morning, we were actually interviewing somebody for the auditor position, so we're hoping to have that position filled really, really soon in the next few weeks to tackle just those sort of issues.
Oh, my name is Kirk Hughes. Love you. Okay, a little history about myself. If you want to have a little bit more, Elliot's conference room is named after my grandmother. And she always said to me this, don't be scared to ask a question, even if it's stupid. Maybe my question is stupid, but am I thinking, I really have to ask this question. We hear a lot of talk about the airport. And sometimes I feel like we put the carriage before the horse. About 15, 20 years ago, the population of Anguilla was almost equal with Tatola. Today, the population of Anguilla is almost 13,000 a half. Tatola is 37. A couple of years ago, we had American Eagle, which did, I think it was 4 flights a day. When American Eagle was making 4 flights a day to Anguilla, it was making 21 a day to Tatola. When American Eagle stopped coming to Anguilla, it was making 13 to Tatola. And we talk about building an airport, expanding our way. Today, Liat, for the past couple of years, has been almost ready to stop. I don't believe that Liat wants to stop because the airport is too small. They don't have no people to live over here. They have people in Tatola. Liat today have a direct flight. If you want to get to Tatola to Anguilla, you have to go from Tatola to Antigua direct to get to Anguilla. We as small businesses, again, tropical tree. I too investigate the matter of other investment, manufacturing. But then, as I look at the statistics, if I invest in manufacturing, I ain't got nobody to buy nothing. The pool is so small, okay? If we continue to fight to expand, we talk about revenue collection and stuff like that, imposing taxes. In a small economy, if it becomes a big, larger, or increasing population, then the revenue collection also automatically increase instead of taxing the already little people that are here. I would like to understand the concept that you're using to expand the airport, because I could see it being a probable cause that you may expand the airport and still no airlines coming because you got nobody to lift. And I think that needs to be taken in consideration. I got another question about, I'll hear you speak out for that first.
You didn't ask a stupid question. You asked a very, very sensible question. And I agree with everything you said. Because building an airport does not improve access. Building an airport does not improve access. What improves access is going out there and ensuring that you have airlines flying into your country, bringing the visitors that you need for your industry. The importance of having an airport, of course, is it gives you flexibility going into the future, in being able to diversify the kind of aircraft, the kind of access that you want to create. You may want to bring in a charter from Miami, you may want to do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, you've got to work on the access issues. I've been saying this for 100 years. You know, there are a lot of people who want to build large airports and want to do X, Y, and Z. The government of Anguilla has got to decide on exactly what it wants and what it can afford in the short-term period, and whether it is important to make the investment now or make the investment later. We have a situation between St. Martin and Anguilla. Our hubs really are St. Martin, Puerto Rico, and Antigua for the most part. Those are our hubs. Now, if we want to develop our tourism industry, we have to find a way that we can have flights coming into Anguilla, to St. Martin, coming into Puerto Rico and Antigua, and connecting into Anguilla. A seamless exercise where somebody in wherever the destination they're coming from can book from that destination, coming right into Anguilla, because there's code sharing with that airline, and the larger commercial airline that comes to the other hubs. I mean, so that is something that is important for access, and these are things that we need to try. Everybody doesn't want to come to St. Martin and then take a boat triangle. I mean, it means therefore that we have to develop the connection between Anguilla and St. Martin. The service between Anguilla and St. Martin has been improved. The service between Puerto Rico and Anguilla has been improved. But equally, it's important in the long term to look towards airport expansion. And we don't want to have airport expansion which says we need to have 10,000 people. We have to determine as a country what is the length of the airport that is most suited to our needs. And then you spoke about population. It's important to have internal markets. Anguilla's population right now is 13 to 15,000 people. I believe that a critical population size for Anguilla is 25,000 people. So that's another important point. You make sure all these things we need to talk about. In the business sector, we've got to engage us in how we achieve that objective. It means that, I mean, we always talk about immigration and the number of people who are coming here. I mean, we want to have our cake and eat it too. It cannot happen. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. If you understand the importance of having internal markets, you understand the importance that if you expand the tourism sector, if you build more hotel rooms, it means that you need to have more workers. If the government and the people of Anguilla are not able to service those hotels, you will have to import people. So you've made a very important point, and I think that most of the things that you've said are things that we all need to consider. Going forward, we have to determine what kind of tourism we need. The BVI have been fortunate enough because not only do they have tourism and financial services, but also they have the marina, the yachting business. The yachting business requires a lot of people to fly into the BVI to take their yachts and go wherever they want to go. Anguilla doesn't have a single marina. So therefore, we have to improve our product. We have to improve the range of services we have in Anguilla. We have to improve the thematic periods. You can have a period for Festival del Mar, you have a jazz period, you have a summer festival period, you have a yachting period, you have a country music period, you have a religious music period, all these kind of things which improve your product. And then you have to offer a number of other forms of tourism, heritage tourism, sports tourism, health tourism, all these kind of things fill up to improve your product. So I'm saying that you didn't ask a foolish question, you asked a very sensible question. We all need to start thinking about it.
I'm the manager and graphic designer at Allied Enterprises Limited. I know quite a few of you. Firstly, I'd like to say, Kyle, thank you for bringing the whole manufacturing thing up. That's a big question of mine as well, because I would say at this point about maybe 75% of my business is all on importing raw materials and making things that I am very proud to say I try to tag made in Anguilla. I'm very big on that because it is another way I think for us to a small item. Because there's a lot going on here, and I think we need to make sure people know about that. But moving on to potentially stupid questions, as Kurt said, I'm sure you guys have investigated this and asked these questions, but I just would like to hear directly from you. How possible do you think it is for us to take more of a charge on going to get our tourists and bringing them here? I could think of many reasons why this would be tough to work, but the possibility of, instead of introducing yet another small airline to Anguilla, which we've done over the past year or two, or bringing in another small airline such as Cape Air to try to help us do what we have to do, how possible would it be even to just have a conversation with our current airlines and try to create one airline that can go to San Juan, go to St. Martin, go to Antigua, and bring our people here. We take more of a control on, getting our tourists here and bringing them to our airport, as opposed to Blowing Point. In my opinion, it's a, as I would think everyone would agree, a more welcoming entrance. I know a lot of countries kind of take that stand. Simple example, going to South Africa, Yes, I could have taken American Airlines, but it was a little easier for me to take South African Airways from New York and go straight into South Africa. You know, we just pull our guests in. So, I mean, I know on a lot of terms, as Anguillians, everybody wants to start up their own thing. Despite the fact that it's not always the best way to go. We're small, coming together for people who have similar interests. I think we'll all benefit more if we would do more of that, but just let me know how possible that is, if you've talked about that already.
The fact is that access is about going out there and marketing and getting the equipment, bringing the bodies in here. And we have been talking to the operators in Anguilla. You have Trans-Anguilla, you have Anguilla Air Service, you have, Sunshine, and they have got to get involved in the picture. I've said from the very beginning of my administration that we need to invest in the local carriers. I am averse to spending any money on flight guarantees for any other airline that's not from Anguilla. I'd rather invest in a local airline for the government to actually invest in local airlines rather than spending money on encouraging flights coming here from whatever part of the world they come. But at the end of the day, it's important to find a strategy to make sure that it is easy for the travelers to get to Anguilla, to occupy our properties, because at the end of the day, it's their convenience that is important to them. They want to be able to come and book Anguilla and get here in a reasonable period of time. That is what they and comfortably. So those are the things that we have to start thinking about. So Hans.